Imagine finding a dying alien royalty in the middle of a dark forest, wounded, afraid, and hunted by forces that don't belong to this world or hers. One human breaks every rule to save her, not knowing that his choice will uncover a hidden war, a deadly conspiracy, and a bond that could unite two worlds, or destroy them both. This is not just a rescue, it's the beginning of a rebellion. Stay with us because the truth you're about to hear was never meant to be found. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Let's move toward wonderful story. The night sky over the sea. Forest was quiet, peaceful, and deep with stars, until it wasn't. Without warning, a piercing streak of light tore across the sky, burning blue and orange as it crashed through the clouds. Trees shook and birds scattered as a thunderous roar followed. Somewhere in the darkness, something massive struck the ground, shaking the earth in its wake. Inside a small cabin deep in the forest, Jonas Hale jolted upright. He'd been half asleep. Over his cluttered workbench, old tools and metal scraps scattered around him. A half-built drone lay on its side, forgotten as the tremor passed through the floor. The windows rattled in their frames. He stood quickly, knocking over a stack of notes. His heart was already racing. "That wasn't thunder," he muttered. His voice sounded too loud in the sudden silence that followed. He grabbed his field kit and his old survival gear, boots, flashlight, and a compact med scanner. His fingers paused on a small pulse pistol, half hidden in the drawer. He hesitated, then clipped it to his belt. Living alone in the woods had taught him never to take chances. Jonas wasn't just any forest recluse. He had once been a respected aerospace biologist, until his theories about non-human life were mocked and rejected. After losing his position at the institute, he retreated to this place, granted a small research station far from public view. It was supposed to be punishment, but to Jonas, it was freedom. He stepped out into the cool night. Smoke drifted lazily through the air, coming from the east. That had to be the crash site. Without waiting, he began walking fast through the forest, pushing through low branches and wet ferns. His flashlight caught broken twigs and scorched grass. Whatever had fallen wasn't small. The further he went, the stronger the smell of burning, metal and something unfamiliar, almost sweet and sharp at the same time. After nearly 30 minutes of hiking, he found it. A clearing, still steaming, surrounded by shattered trees. In the center sat a strange craft half buried in the earth. It wasn't like any aircraft Jonas had ever seen. The hull shimmered, like metal mixed with pearl, and curved in smooth, impossible shapes. A soft blue light pulsed from somewhere inside. This was not a human machine. He stood frozen for a long moment, staring. His theories, all the things he'd been laughed at for, were true. This was proof. But awe quickly gave way to something else. Fear. Official protocol was clear. Report any unidentified object, keep a safe distance, wait for government teams. Breaking those rules meant prison, or worse. Still, Jonas stepped closer. The side of the ship had torn open. Inside, darkness. His flashlight caught scattered pieces of strange technology, broken seats and more of that glowing blue liquid. He recognized the substance almost at once. Not oil, not fuel, but blood. Alien blood. The trail led away from the ship, glowing. Drops scattered across the grass. Something or someone had crawled out. Jonas followed the trail through the trees. He moved carefully, heart pounding. He knew the risks, but he couldn't ignore this. Something was out here, alive and hurt, and scared. After several minutes, he found it. Beneath an old pine, lying half-conscious against the trunk, was a figure that looked almost human. Almost. She had long limbs and pale skin with a soft green tint. Faint patterns glowed across her arms and face, pulsing like veins of light. Two small horns curled back from her head like branches. Her armor was cracked and stained with the same glowing blood. One hand pressed weakly to her side where the wound was worst. Jonas raised his pistol but didn't aim. He wasn't sure what he was seeing. Her eyes opened, bright gold, strange and beautiful. They locked onto his, wide with fear. She tried to speak, but the sounds were sharp and musical. Nothing he could understand. She tried to stand, but failed. Her body shook and she let out a soft cry. Jonas stood frozen. His training said to report. His fear said to leave. But something in her gaze, pain, desperation, trust, kept him rooted to the spot. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly, knowing she couldn't understand. He knelt slowly, placing the scanner between them to show he meant no harm. Her eyes followed his every move. The scanner beeped rapidly. She was dying. Internal damage, blood loss, dropping temperature. There wasn't time to wait for help, even if he wanted to call for it. Jonas made his choice. He slid his arms beneath her. She was lighter than expected, her body cold to the touch. As he lifted her, she tensed but didn't fight. He turned, back toward the cabin, moving quickly now, driven by a mix of fear and urgency. Above, the sound of distant aircraft engines echoed. The search teams were already coming. Jonas kept his head down and disappeared into the trees. He didn't know what would happen next. All he knew was that he had just committed the kind of act you don't come back from. He had chosen to save something, someone, not of this world. And deep down he knew this moment would change everything. Rain fell lightly outside the cabin as Jonas placed the alien woman, Erin, he would later learn, onto the padded table in his lab. Her skin still glowed faintly in the dim light. Her breathing shallow but steady. Jonas moved quickly, using his tools and limited supplies to clean and treat her injuries. The scanner beeped constantly, warning of irregular heart rhythms and internal bleeding. He wasn't sure what organs she had or where they were, but he worked with care and instinct. Years of studying alien biology gave him clues, but nothing compared to seeing it in front of him. She didn't wake for hours. Jonas stayed close, checking her vitals, adjusting bandages and scanning her body. He noticed strange symbols on her skin, patterns like tattoos, glowing softly with her pulse. He remembered seeing designs like these in ancient carvings found in space debris, rumored to belong to royal bloodlines. But none of that seemed real now. All that mattered was keeping her alive. When she finally stirred, Jonas was adjusting a monitor. Her eyes blinked open, golden and bright, and locked onto him. In one smooth motion, she rolled from the table and reached into her armor. A blade unfolded in her hand, faster than Jonas could react. He stumbled back, hands up. "Wait, I'm not your enemy," he said loudly, backing away. She moved toward him, breathing hard. Her movements were quick but shaky. The wound on her side had opened again. Blood, if it could be called that, dripping onto the floor. Jonas pointed quickly to her injury. "You're hurt," he said, tapping his own side to show her. "I helped you." She paused, watching him, still holding the blade. Her other hand touched her side. When she looked at her glowing fingers, a look of confusion crossed her face. Jonas saw her glance at the medical equipment, the scanner, and the strange green device from her armor, lying on the workbench. She said something sharp and musical in her language, then pointed to the device. He nodded. "That? I think it's a communicator." Slowly, he picked it up and turned it over. It was cracked, but maybe repairable. She didn't stop him, so he opened it carefully using small tools. Inside, the circuits pulsed with faint light. He recognized some of the shapes, organic tech, grown rather than built. He had seen similar things in wreckage during his research. 20 minutes passed in silence as he worked. She watched every movement, tense but still. Finally, the device hummed to life. Jonas handed it to her carefully. She took it and pressed it to her neck. It attached like it belonged there, merging slightly with her skin. "Can you understand me now?" he asked, unsure if the translation would work. The device buzzed, then a soft voice replied through it. "How do you know Velmirian technology, human?" Jonas let out a breath. "I study alien life forms. That's why I live out here. I didn't build weapons. I built knowledge." She narrowed her eyes. You are not part of the war? He shook his head. I was pushed out for saying we should try understanding instead of destroying. They called me a traitor. She blinked, and the blade folded back into her armor. Her body swayed, weak again. Jonas stepped forward and caught her before she fell. She didn't fight this time. I'm Jonas, he said, helping her onto the table again. Let me treat that wound properly. She watched him closely, but allowed it. As he cleaned the wound and applied a fresh patch, her voice came through, the translator again. I am Erin, daughter of the House of Stellan, second to the Velmirian throne. Jonas paused, stunned. He had guessed she was important, but this was more than he'd imagined. You're royalty? Her eyes closed, briefly. Yes, but right now I am just someone who needed help and you gave it. Over the next 2 days, Erin rested while Jonas monitored her recovery. He gave her food adapted from his nutrient packs, and she accepted it, though always carefully. She studied everything, his tools, his books, his cabin. When they spoke, the translator struggled with some of her words, but they still managed to understand one another. They talked about the war, how it had lasted so long that neither side remembered how it truly began. Erin explained that she had fled after an attack on her diplomatic transport. She believed there was a third force involved, someone trying to keep the war going for their own gain. Jonas shared his theory that many battles had strange patterns, communications lost, leaders acting oddly, peace efforts destroyed at the last minute. He'd always suspected there was more behind it. Erin looked thoughtful at that and said, Then we are both witnesses to something larger. Something changed between them as the hours passed. Jonas noticed how Erin's eyes lingered on him when he spoke. She smiled once, briefly, when he tripped over a wire and caught himself clumsily. When she touched his hand to take a tool from him, there was a small jolt like static, but warmer. They sat by the window that night, both silent, watching the rain fall. Jonas spoke softly. I don't know what happens next. Erin looked at him. Neither do I, but for now we are no longer alone. In that quiet moment, with nothing but the sound of the storm and the faint hum of alien technology, a bond began to grow. Silent, strong, and full of questions neither of them could answer yet. The forest was quiet again, but Jonas Hale could feel something in the air, like the calm before a storm. Erin had been healing fast, faster than he expected. Her alien biology responded well to his care, and she had even begun walking around the cabin without help. But neither of them felt at ease. A few hours earlier, a strange signal had buzzed through one of Erin's recovered devices. She said it didn't come from her people. It was something else, something older and more dangerous. That night, Jonas dug into his old research logs. With Erin at his side, they reviewed years of records, intercepted signals, failed peace talks, and sudden attacks that had no explanation. Erin added data from her own ship's memory core, fragmented files, broken communications, and partial recordings. Together, they began to notice patterns. Some transmissions weren't from Earth or Velmira. They came from a third source. As the pieces came together, a chilling picture began to form. Someone had been pushing both Earth and Velmira into war, not openly, not directly, but through small, constant interference, turning misunderstanding into violence, peace talks into battles. They had no name for the ones behind it yet, but Jonas remembered stories from old science journals about a species called the Narix, ancient, secretive, and skilled at hiding in plain sight. Thought to be extinct, thought to be myth. Jonas leaned back in his chair, eyes wide. If they're still alive and involved, they've been feeding this war from the shadows. Erin stood at the window, staring into the dark trees. I feared something like this. There were whispers on Velmira, stories of unseen hands shaping our decisions. No one believed them. I barely did. Jonas's hands shook as he pulled up a recent Earth military broadcast. Look at this. 3 months ago, a peace treaty was almost signed. Then suddenly, one side refused. The message they received, it's the same signal pattern. It wasn't from us or you. They looked at each other. It was no longer a theory. It was real. The quiet between them grew heavy. Outside, the wind had picked up. Aaron turned from the window. We need to share. This, both sides need to know. Jonas nodded. There's a research outpost 2 days from here. It has a quantum transmitter. Secure. High power. If we can get there, we can send this to both governments at once. We'll be hunted the moment we leave, Aaron said, checking the edge of her blade. If the Nareks know we're aware of them, they won't let us escape. We don't have a choice, Jonas replied. If we stay quiet, the war continues. More people die. Maybe both our worlds. They packed what they could carry, medical supplies, tools, data drives. Jonas didn't have much in the way of weapons, but Aaron was trained in combat. Her people had been at war for generations. She moved like someone born to survive. They left just before dawn, slipping into the woods. The path was rough, and the Eeyore rain from the night before had turned the ground into thick mud. They moved fast, careful to leave no tracks. Every sound made Jonas glance over his shoulder. At one point, they heard a drone overhead. They dropped low beneath the trees, holding, still as it passed. The light from its scanner beam flickered briefly through the branches but missed them. After hours of silence and careful walking, they found an old riverbed and followed it. Aaron walked ahead, her senses sharp. Jonas could tell she was listening. To everything. The crunch of leaves, the whisper of wind, even the movement of birds. He trusted her instincts. Later that night, they made camp in a small cave hidden behind a curtain of vines. Jonas started a small fire, just enough for warmth. Aaron sat close, watching the flames flicker. She looked tired, but her glow had returned, steady and calm. I never thought I'd be here, she said softly. Sitting beside a human, sharing fire, talking peace. Neither did I, Jonas replied. But somehow it feels right. She smiled, a small, sad smile. Do you think they'll listen, your people mine? I don't know, Jonas said honestly, but we have to try. She looked at him then, and something passed between them. Not fear, not hope. Something deeper, a shared understanding, as the fire burned low. Jonas reached into his bag and handed her a small photo. It showed him with a group of scientists from years ago. That was before they kicked me out. I kept asking too many questions, told them the war didn't make sense. Aaron traced the edge of the photo with her fingers. Then we've both been outcasts. Maybe that's why we found each other. That night, as they took turns keeping watch, neither of them spoke much. But their silence wasn't empty. It was filled with thoughts, fears, and the beginning of something more than survival. A bond formed through trust and danger. A bond that didn't need words. They knew the next day would be harder. But they also knew, now more than ever, that they weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for truth. For peace. And maybe for a future where humans and Velmirans didn't have to fear each other, where they could stand together. And maybe, just maybe, it had already begun. The wind howled through the trees as Jonas and Aaron stood at the edge of a rocky ridge, staring down at the research outpost glowing faintly in the valley below. From above, it looked peaceful, just another quiet building hidden deep in the forest. But both of them knew better. This place was guarded. If the Nareks had infiltrated military ranks on Earth and Velmira, there was a good chance the outpost was already compromised. Still, it was their only hope. They had traveled for 2 days through difficult terrain, hiding from drones, crossing cold rivers, and moving only when it was safe. Aaron's glow had faded during the journey, her body clearly tired, but she never complained. Jonas knew she was pushing herself. He wanted to tell her to rest, but there was no time left for comfort. Using a scope Jonas had built from spare parts, they studied the patrol patterns. Armed guards, some human, some not. They moved strangely, too stiff, too calm. Controlled, Aaron whispered. Not fully human anymore, not fully Velmiran either. Narek's influence was spreading fast. We go around. The east wall, Jonas said. There's a maintenance tunnel. I used it once years ago when I helped install the satellite links. If it's still unguarded, we can slip inside. Aaron nodded, gripping her blade. Her voice was quiet. Let's move. They crept down the hill in darkness, staying low and quiet. The forest muffled their steps. As they reached the tunnel entrance, Jonas found the keypad still intact. He entered a code he hadn't used in years. The door opened with a soft click. Inside, the hallway smelled of oil and dust. Pipes lined the walls. It felt like the place hadn't been touched in a long time. They moved through the shadows, passing empty rooms and quiet machinery. No alarms. No footsteps. It felt too easy. Jonas stopped at a steel door. Behind this is the control center. If I can connect the drive, I can upload everything. The message will reach both Earth and Velmyra in seconds. Aaron placed a hand on his shoulder. Once we send it, there's no going back. Jonas looked at her. Her face was tired but strong. He nodded. We've come too far to stop now. He pushed open the door. The room was larger than he remembered, filled with blinking lights and quiet hums. Screens showed maps, messages, and security feeds. Jonas rushed to the main terminal and plugged in the drive. The system beeped, starting the upload, but then the door slammed shut behind them. A voice filled the room, smooth and cold. You brought her here. Of course you did. They turned to see a figure step from the shadows. It was Commander Drell, a man Jonas had once worked with, but now his eyes were wrong. His skin shimmered faintly. Not fully human anymore. You've been busy, Drell said, digging into things best left buried. We know what you are, Aaron said, stepping forward. You don't belong here. On the contrary, Drell replied. We belong more than you. War is a tool. Conflict clears the way. And thanks to you, our time has come faster than expected. Guards entered behind him, weapons drawn. Aaron stood in front of Jonas, ready to fight. Keep the upload going, she whispered, no matter what happens. Then she charged. The room exploded into motion. Aaron moved like light, dodging blasts, striking with speed and force. Jonas ducked behind the terminal, protecting the data drive. The system kept beeping, the percentage bar crawling higher. Just a few more seconds, he said through clenched teeth. Drell stepped forward, energy crackling in one hand. You can't stop this. But before he could strike, Aaron tackled him. They crashed into the wall, fighting hand to hand, her blade against his energy weapon. Sparks flew. The upload reached 100%. Jonas hit the final command. It's done, he breathed. A blaring alarm shook the building. The message had gone out to both worlds. Drell let out a roar, throwing Aaron off him. He aimed his weapon at Jonas, but Aaron was faster. Her blade found its mark. Drell collapsed, silent and still. Outside, chaos broke loose. Explosions in the distance. Signals answered. Allies from both Earth and Velmyra who had resisted the Nareks were arriving, responding to the truth. The building shook from outside blasts. We need to leave, Jonas said, grabbing the drive and helping Aaron up. They ran through the halls, passing stunned guards, overturned tables, and crackling wires. As they reached the outer exit, a shockwave hit them, throwing them into the grass outside. Jonas coughed, pulling himself up. Aaron lay beside him, eyes open, breathing hard. We made it, he said, reaching for her hand. She smiled, tired but full of fire. The truth is out. They can't stop it now. In the days that followed, everything changed. News networks played the message across both planets. Leaders were arrested. Armies paused. Peace talks restarted. Not just between humans and Velmyrans, but also between people within their own worlds. Jonas and Aaron were offered a place in the new Alliance Council. They stood together on a platform overlooking a crowd of both species, their hands joined. For the first time there was hope. It was real hope. That night, as stars filled the sky above the newly built Unity outpost, Aaron leaned her head against Jonas's shoulder. We started something big, she whispered. Jonas nodded. And we'll carry it together, no matter what comes. And far away in the cold dark of space, the Nareks watched and waited. But Earth and Velmira were no longer divided. A new light had been lit, one carried by two hearts, bound not by fear, but by choice.